EPianos here, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite timbres in all of music history, and that would be the Rhodes piano. So today I'm going to be focusing on some design considerations that you should keep in mind during the sound creation process. So let's give it a quick listen. The basics of the patch, and I guess we can just start in a new patch, are that the Fender Rhodes, or the Rhodes, has somewhat of a saw wave structure to it. And so to easily achieve this, we can just drive the first operator by itself, or modulate an operator by itself. And we start to get some of the saw harmonics. We have every partial in the series. So let's also run that through a filter and move on to the next design considerations. When we move into higher notes in the register, if they are too harmonic rich, they're going to be very harsh. And we can work with the key mapping on the modulation tab so that there's less modulation in these upper registers. And we can do that as such. Okay, I'm actually going to drop the pitch of this an entire octave. Okay. All right, so we can hear that it's still a bit too harsh there. All right. These upper notes should have barely any harmonic content. There we go. Lower notes in the lower register, they should be very harmonic rich and have this rich timbre. But if you have the same timbre up in the high notes, it's just going to sound very screechy. So the next thing that we need to do is also work with the key mapping for the volume tab. And this is also to ensure that when you're playing the upper note to the register that they're not too harsh when you hit the key like I did earlier. So we're going to have a similar mapping as we did for the modulation. All right, we can turn this down. Let's see. That sounds about right. So now if we play chords with this patch, and I should turn the overall volume down a bit before I do that. We play chords with this patch, it should sound pretty smooth throughout the chord, and we won't have the high end overpowering the low end. Let's have a nice minor chord. So there we go. These high notes aren't too harsh standing out from the rest of the chord. All right, so the next thing that we need to do to make the timbre more interesting is have the note sustain and decay as a natural sound would to an extent. So we're going to mess with the envelopes of both the volume and the mod tab in Citrus. So one thing to note about these sounds is that the higher partial harmonics, or the higher harmonics in this partial series, they decay quicker than more fundamental tone and immediate harmonics. So we're going to have a sharp decay of the mod envelope, and then a gradual decay. So if we play a note, we notice that the harmonics die off. The highest harmonics die off rather quickly, and then the timbre slowly smooths out and becomes more of just a pure tone. So now for the volume, again, there should be a quick short decay. And that should kind of emulate pressing down on the key of a keyboard. So with the natural piano sound, when the mallet hits the string, you get this sharp attack, and then you get the sustain, which is considerably lower in volume from the attack. And so we emulate that with this type of envelope filter. But then, again, this is an electronic sound, so we don't really need to worry too much about emulating a real-world piano. The next thing that you should do is work with the sustain to taste. If you want the sound to die off completely when you're playing a chord, make sure to turn the sustain down in this envelope. But if you want the note to really sustain throughout a chord, no matter how long you have it held down for, keep the sustain up. So now if we play the chord, we have some attack, some decay, and some gradual drop off in sustain. And so even before we add any reverb, any chorus, any unison, we have a nice, smooth, mellow piano sound and a decent timbre in the bass patch. Words. In the bass patch. Bass meaning B-A-S-E, not B-A-S-S. In the bass patch to work with. So the next thing that we can do is we can spice this up with whatever effects we want. I would put a little bit of unison on to make it a bit richer. Let's see. Turn down. Let's turn down the unison pitch a bit. We don't want it to sound too out of tune, but mess with the phase and see what kind of rich and interesting phase cancellations you can get. That might be a bit too much. Let's see. Yeah, we don't want too much unison in the low notes. So one thing that we can do, because we have unison on this patch, is add another plugin without unison and kind of reinforce the low end so that you don't get that rhythmic cancellation in the low end in this piano patch. So this. All right, and then similar thing, declick it, and you're going to want to have the volume envelope similar to the other citrus instance. I'm tripping over my tongue today. And so this makes the fundamental tone a bit more solid. And so if we play a C3 for this sound, it still has a consistent low end, even though you have some phase cancellation occurring in the upper registers. One thing that we should do though, now that we've added this, is only have it for the lower notes, because we don't really worry about that phase cancellation for the notes in the higher registers. So, and we should turn down the contribution of this a bit so it's not destroying the rest of the sound too much, but still helping keep the low end a bit consistent. Some other things that we can do, briefly, we can just run this first filter into the second filter, and this second filter can be a high pass. And we can add some reverb here. One, so that we're not putting too much reverb on the low end and making this sound really muddy. And also we can do some interesting things like rhythmic panning with a low frequency oscillator and give this sound some more stereo image. Always nervous when he walks on the keyboard, what's going to happen. All right, some last considerations with a Rhodes patch, or a Rhodes-like patch, I should say, is that to reduce mud, well, first you should, oh geez, my cat turned the keyboard on. To remove some of the mud, the first thing you should do is put a high pass in this parametric EQ. Just to really roll off any sub frequencies. And I need to declick this as well. I forgot to do that. Did I? Nope, I didn't forget to. All right, so let's not make that like that. All right, the volume envelope will do something different so that we don't have that weird attack. We'll do this instead. It'll still have an attack, but we won't have this frequency wash that we did previously. There we go. All right, so one thing to help clear up the mud is to turn down some of these low, mid, and mid frequencies and just add a little bit of a cut there. All right. So now if we go back to pattern 1, we can compare this new EPiano or Rhodes patch to the previous one. So that's the first one, and the second one should come in here. So last consideration is some compression, and making sure that the bass is in mono. Other than that, just experiment around with that sound. During the course of this experimentation, I came upon a completely different sound than the one that I started out with, which was this sound. And each time you make a patch, even if you're trying to make the same patch each time, you're going to happen across different sounds and slightly different timbres. Thanks for those that tuned in and made it to the end of this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below in the comments bar. And again, thanks for tuning in.